All right, let's do our savings account model in Excel. I like to start here times 0 in row 10. That way, if I'm way down on the spreadsheet, I know I can just subtract 10 mentally from whatever Excel row number is to get the time step number. And we're calling that N. We're going to have our account balance. And we said let's start off with $1,000. And then we'll have our delta value, which remember that's the change in A sub n. And we said we're going to earn 1% interest. Let's put in a cell up here. 1% is the interest rate per year. So how am I going to use that? First of all, these are the two numbers that I've typed into the spreadsheet rather than a formula, not including the time steps. So I'm going to highlight those. I like to use blue for that. It kind of points out, hey, here are some cells you can change and interesting things will happen. So what was our delta formula? It was interest rate per year times the current balance. That's how you compute how much interest you earn. So I'll just do the interest rate per year, lock that with a absolute reference dollar signs, and multiply by the account balance, not lock that one. So if I deposit $1,000, earn 1% interest per year, I end up with $10 at the end of the year. And then what's my new account balance? It's my previous value plus how much change happened. So this previous value plus how much change, we're going to be using that over and over again. In fact, this column is usually pretty boring. It's usually just previous value plus amount of change, and all the interesting stuff happens in the change formula here. So after I earn my $10, it goes back into the account. And then how much do I earn the next time period? Well, I'm just going to do that same formula again. Actually, we need a little bit more precision here. So now I've earned an extra 10 cents, and then I can do that again, and now I'm earning an extra 20 cents that year. And I want to keep this going. I want to go out, let's go to about year 500 or so, which is a little ridiculous, I know, but it'll come in handy later. So the question is, how should I fill this down? I could just fill down this last row. That seems to have worked here. It kept counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes it doesn't do that, and it just fills down like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It's tempting to highlight all of this and fill down, but let's check what happens when we do that. First of all, it repeats the $1,000. It repeats the blue, which is actually kind of a good danger sign. Notice that I was earning money, and then it went back to what I started with. That's because when I highlighted these, this one is a number. There's no formula there, but this is a formula, and that's a formula. And it saw number, formula, and didn't know how to generalize that, so it just kept repeating. Number, formula, number, formula, which is not what we wanted. I just wanted a whole bunch of formulas, and that one first row is an exception. So if you see something like that repeating pattern, what that means is you highlighted too much before filling down. What I wanted to do is just highlight maybe the most recent two, and we'll fill this down, go up near row 500, doesn't really matter exactly. Remember, these percent sign, these number signs just mean the column isn't wide enough to show the whole value. Oh, that's wider than I wanted. Okay, that's probably good. All right, so we're tracking our savings account. Is there anything else we should do now that we have all these numbers? I hope someone said graph it, so let's graph it. First, let's graph the time step number and the account balance. And I'm going to take extra time to set up my graphs here, because once we get them set up properly, they'll just repeat over and over on all the later sheets. Let's shift to something that has labels. This axis is time, so I'm clicking on the axis title, come up here to the formula bar, hit equals, and then click on the name on the cell that has what I want to go in that axis title, because we'll be changing these names later, and that way it'll change directly on the sheet. This axis title, click on the axis title, click in the formula bar, hit equals, click the cell I want it to have, and we can do the same thing for the title. Alright, so that's looking good. It's usually nice to make the markers not so big, so I right-clicked on the data set, chose Format Data Series, go to Marker, Built-in but smaller, and for fill, let's have no fill. That might come in handy later, but it's fine for now. Now, some of you are looking at this and saying, that kind of looks like exponential growth. Wouldn't surprise me. Let's fit a trend line to it. And we'll say display equation, display r squared. And let's change the color of the trend line to black so it's easy to see against the blue curve. And do exponential, and sure enough it looks exponential. Not really surprised there. This e to the 0.01x certainly looks a lot like our interest rate, 0.01. Turns out it's not quite the same, which is an interesting story, but maybe we'll get back to that later. Alright, so that's a good graph. I could have also included the delta on there as a second time series. It turns out it's not all that informative. It's a good thing to do in a calc class, because then you've got the original function and kind of the derivative on the same graph, but we aren't going to be using it very much, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to do another graph here that's the time step, sorry, not the time step, the account balance and the delta value. I'm going to start down here, and we're going to come back and look at these later. Let's format the data series. Let's put it in a different color. Doesn't really matter what color. How about orange? And we should do a good job setting all our axis titles on that. So now the x-axis is the account balance, or whatever amount we're keeping track of. The y-axis is the delta value, and I guess we can leave that title the same. It's not really going to help to put a trend line on this at this point. So that's our first model for savings account, compound interest, and we're pretty much done.